Okay, welcome. Happy Friday, everyone. Welcome to Intentional Conversations VodCast, where we will have deep discussions that center conversations around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, along with leadership in business. I am your host, Dr. Nika White. My pronouns are she, her, and I am delighted that you are with us today. We don't take it lightly that you have decided to spend this hour with us. We are very grateful. And in return, our commitment is to make sure that this is time well spent. I cannot wait for you to meet our guest co-host today and to hear all of the experiences that she's had and her accolades, her credentials, how she shows up to this work of helping women. And so you're in for a treat. I often like to share that if you're joining us for the first time, you know that cameras are encouraged, especially if you're part of the Zoom community. We love to see smiling faces, but they are not required. We certainly know that sometimes people just have it playing in the background. Maybe they're just there in an auditory capacity, observing and just, taking in and soaking up all that they can from the content. And we value that as well. And so we're just glad that you're here. I also want to acknowledge the live LinkedIn audience that may be joining us right now. Perhaps you were scrolling and you saw it and you said, I want to chime in, and we're glad that you did. We often, though, share that we believe the experience is optimized when you are able to be a part of the Zoom community. And so if you desire to switch on over to the Zoom community, my team is going to place into the comment section how you can do that, and we will welcome you over in this space. We also want to let you know that at NWC, we really do value disability inclusion. So we do have closed caption that has been enabled for your benefit, if that's something that's of value to you. And really appreciate how this team at NWC shows up every single week to ensure this virtual production experience is one that we all can feel proud of. The chat today is going to be a way for us to get proximate to each other. So I want you to certainly lean in. If something is said that resonates with you, then add it to the chat. If you are feeling inclined to share a resource that relates maybe to the topics that come up, then you know what to do. Share it in the chat. This is our way to extend those affirmations and to be in community with each other. And so welcome again to Intentional Conversations VodCast. I hope you enjoy the show. And I want to do a quick check right now. Are we recording? Let me get that in place. For some reason, I'm not seeing it on my end that we're recording. So I just want to double check before we actually jump right in.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Awesome. Welcome. Welcome again, Intentional Conversations VodCast. Yes, happy Friday again. Let the conversations begin. And that is precisely what we're going to do. So I want to jump right in. For those of you maybe are just tuning in, again, you have joined Intentional Conversations VodCast, where we intersect conversations of DEIB with leadership in business. And we're so glad that you're here today. So I often take a moment at the start of our time together each Friday just to bring some information to you that may or may not be top of mind. And October 9th is Indigenous Peoples Day. And so we want to make sure that that is something that is top of mind for you. I just recently wrote an article for Entrepreneur Magazine on this topic. And specifically, I was encouraging workplaces to think very meaningfully and intentionally about how to appropriately recognize Indigenous Peoples Day. And so I'm going to ask my team to drop a link into the chat so that you can have access to that particular article. But yeah, let's make sure that we're doing our part to recognize and support Indigenous people that we may know in our communities, in our workplaces. Okay, moving right along. October is a lot going on. It's also National Women Small Business Month. And I would be remiss if I did not bring that to the conversation, because I am a woman small business owner, and I really value what women business owners bring to our economy. And so if you know of a woman business owner and you want to shout her out, I want you to place that into the chat, right? Let us all know who you are supporting, who you are cheering and rooting for. And we hope that they can somehow feel the love and the support that's maybe being shown through this community. But yes, show appreciation to those women small business owners that you are aware of in your network. October, again, as I said, is busy. It's also Mental Health Awareness Week. And we know that mental health is so critically important. I have no doubt that this is going to come into our conversation today with Christy Rutherford. It is something that impacts all of us, from a personal perspective, from maybe our friends and our colleagues and our family. And it is nothing to be afraid of talking about. We need to normalize the conversation, break the stigma, because being mentally healthy is part of taking care of our well-being. And so I can't say that enough. And so make sure that you are considering all that you need to consider as we lean in and really amplify the importance of Mental Health Awareness Week. It's also Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and it's so important, again, that we do what we can to make sure that our loved ones are getting those mammograms or doing all the preventative measures to make sure that we're catching anything early. Prevention is actually one of the best ways to allow us to really fight this disease. And so I often like to make sure that our community is aware of, again, these type of awareness issues that are taking place throughout the months as we convene. Now, many of you know that we have lots of resources that we like to share with our community. It's our way of really helping those that align with us, being able to go deeper as they really deepen their knowledge and understanding of diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging, both in theory and practice. And so one of those ways, in addition to our podcast that we provide every week, which also has a podcast component to it, by the way, we do extract the audio for those who may be new to this community, but we also have a LinkedIn newsletter, and it's called Inclusion Insider. So we invite you to subscribe, and we are releasing content multiple times a month, and we value those who engage with us by sharing your comments on our articles. Now, as I normally do, I want to give you a little bit of what you have to look forward to in the weeks ahead in terms of Intentional Conversations VodCast. We have a great lineup this month, and I am so super excited because on next Friday, the 13th, we will be welcoming Yvonne Hutchinson. And in that conversation, we're going to be discussing reimagining workplace learning and unpacking the relationship between professional development, personal improvement, and cultural transformation. So I hope you're going to mark your calendars and join us on October 13th. And then following that, my friend, Dr. Ella Washington, will be joined with us here on Intentional Conversations, and her latest book, her only book now, is The Necessary Journey, Making Real Progress on Equity and Inclusion. And so we're going to be talking about her book, The Concept of Workplace Utopia, and how to reinvigorate DEI dialogue without reinventing the wheel. And so if any of those topics are of interest to you, then meet me here. And we look forward to engaging with Dr. Ella Washington. Now, if you happen to enjoy this podcast, many of you are repeat attendees, and we're so grateful for that. Or maybe you catch the podcast, or maybe you catch the replays. Either way, however in which you get this content, let us know. We're going to drop into the chat a link with just simple 2 or 3 questions for you to give us your testimony. Let us know how this is impacting you. It helps us tremendously to have that feedback, and we're grateful in advance for you taking a moment in time to share that with us. Now, you know what happens, podcast community? It is big for me to go ahead and read before bringing on our guest co-host their official bio, because I want you to know all of the accolades, the credentials, how they're showing up to this space. And so this is my way of honoring all of the hard work that they've put into getting to where they are. And I want to extend that same courtesy and respect to our guest co-host today, Christy Rutherford. A globally recognized leader, Christy Rutherford is an executive leadership coach that assists women with being promoted through office politics and self-care. Her clients have received over 11 million in salary raises in a pandemic. An author, Christy published 5, not 1, 2, 3, 4, but 5 #1 best-selling books on Amazon, and get this, in 8 months. We need to talk about that. I need to understand, when did you sleep? Christy is a Harvard Business School alumna and certified executive leadership coach from Georgetown University. She was recently featured in Black Enterprise and has been featured in Forbes multiple times. Christy is the 13th African-American woman to achieve the rank of Commander, Lieutenant Colonel equivalent in the U.S. Coast Guard's 230-plus year history, where her demographic was 0.1%. 0.1%. She responded to the needs of the citizens in New Orleans 2 days after Hurricane Katrina and had a 3-year congressional fellowship with the House of Representatives. Christy's academic portfolio also includes an MBA and a pastry chef diploma. Among her many professional accomplishments, her national recognition includes Harvard Business School's 2018 Launching New Ventures Pitch Contest, Grand Master Champion, Cambridge Who's Who amongst executives and professionals, Career Communications STEM Technology All-Star, and the Edward R. Williams Award for Excellence in Diversity. Podcast community, for those of you who know what we do now, I want you to model it for us, find those accolades, find those words of affirmation, but let's show gratitude and appreciation to our guest co-host today, Christy Rutherford. Go to the chat, go to the comments. Yay! Christy, we are so thrilled to have you here with us, and I am going to turn you loose to greet this audience in your own way. But before I do that, one of the things we do here on the Intentional Conversations podcast is, now that we've read your bio, now that we've talked about all of your experiences, I'm going to ask you, this is a hard question, I'm not sure, but I want you to share with us something we would not know about you from reading your bio or even from reading your LinkedIn profile. So welcome, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Nika. I'm excited to be here to share with your audience. So one of the things that people won't know about me, I would say 2, I can sew. I made my prom dress. And 2, I know how to drive a tractor. I'm from South Carolina. So y'all would never know.
Yes. I was going to get to that next because we just discovered actually today that we have met before. You reminded me of that years ago, maybe like 2014, I believe that you said, and that you are from South Carolina. And so we have some common ground here. And so I couldn't be more elated to have those commonalities with you. And so, Christy, I'm so grateful that you are spending your time with us. And get this, I have to share this with the audience. Christy is on vacation this week, right? Not staycation, not workcation, but on vacation. And she's here with us, y'all. I think that deserves, certainly some snaps, some claps, some emojis into the chat. We are grateful. We are grateful. We really are. So thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to jump right in, shall we?
Oh, definitely. I'm excited.
Definitely. Okay. Yeah. So I want you to tell us about your journey. What inspired you, Christy, to become an advocate for women's advancement in the workplace? Give us that story.
Ooh, I've been in the game a long time. I actually got a text from one of my mentees from my previous career. And he and another one of my direct reports, it was 2 of them. In 2010, I cast a vision for them to be at a certain rank and in a certain elite position in our organization, in my former organization. They're both there. 2 of them are there and they're at that rank, right? And so he was like, man, how did you do it? And so a part of, my goal and my dreams and what I've been doing, I've been doing this for a long time. Long before social media was around, I've been casting visions for people. I can see the gift in people, even if they didn't see it in themselves. And when I initially got these 2 young men, they didn't want to stay in the organization. They were both going to resign. And so to be able to give them insight and the fuel and have conversations with them 12 years ago, he's like, I remember when you told me this. I remember when you told me that. It's like I prepared them for a 20-year career and not just what they were going to do for me in the moment. So with regards to women, when I ended up burning out, which we're going to talk about, and leaving my career, and when I got it back together, I didn't necessarily want to tell my story and share my journey. I wanted to talk about leadership because I was an iconic and prolific leader. Let's be clear. Results are, they're still being demonstrated to this day. But there was a need for women. And I it's just like women have the most limited conversations. And there are articles that are written about what women can't do. There are books that are written about what women can't do. There are studies written about what women can't do. And so I've never seen that with men. There are whole events and empowerment events to talk about what women can't do. So I was like, all right, fine, I'll come on out here in this space. So it's been a journey ever since.
So let me tell you something that I absolutely love and I embrace, and I appreciate you modeling it. And I want to see more of it, especially from women of color. And that is claiming and owning what we feel like are our superpowers and what makes us good at what we do. So what you said was, I am an iconic, prolific leader. And I love that you own that. I really do. I mean, so many times we shy away, especially as women, going back to kind of what you were alluding to, we shy away from really just leaning into what our superpowers are and claiming that and socializing it, because we've been told that it makes us arrogant. But when men do it, they're just being assertive, they're being leaders. And so anyway, I just wanted to give you kudos around how in which you framed that language as you were talking and defining yourself. So I want to talk about these 8 books, because as I was reading your bio, I was like, wait, what? How? No, it's 8 months. I'm getting the numbers confused, but it's actually 5 #1 best-selling books on Amazon in 8 months. Okay, so let me just tell you, Christy, my book released at the end. It was book number 3 for me, but there was years in between. But this last one, it released at the end of January. And so my book baby is like, what? I don't know, 6, 7, 8 months old. And I have no inkling, no feelings, no desire, nothing to start another writing process. And so when I read that, I mean, literally, I think I had a little bit of palpitations going on. I'm like, what in the world? So you have to tell us, how did this happen and how did you do it?
Well, it's interesting because I'm actually sitting on 7 books that I haven't published, 7 that are fully done. So, and I've done 9. I think it was in a 2-year period, but doing 5 and 8 months was more impressive as a stat. So the thing about, I would say about me, 1, I'm a super nerd. 2, I've always been that leader that's wanted to learn stuff and share, but I got into trouble, which is what a lot of women do, is that we walk around with all this knowledge and we give it to other people, but we aren't doing it ourselves.
Right.
We know what we should be doing, but we're not necessarily going to do it, but we read stuff to give other people advice, and then we don't do it. And so after burning out and, reading all and now applying the information that I learned, there are a couple of things that happened that let me know that it was okay, because I was terrified of my power, Dr. Nika. Because I was powerful. And if I walk around as a 20,000 watt light bulb, I can light up the whole city, or I can burn down the whole village. Like, choose how you're going to use it. And so over time in my career and fighting and just to exist, and I got to go to work and I got to fight and I got to prove you wrong. And I thought that when I joined that, and they told me I would never make it. And now that I have all of the success and I got all these accolades, I thought that they would accept me. And I know we're going to get to that, but it's like, once I burned out, then I had to start using the information that I never implemented for myself, but I gave to my mentees, because they're frolicking, they're happy, they're married, they have children, right? Like, they aren't doing the same things that I did. And so once I got my mind back right, now it's like, God was like, basically, now it's time for you to pour. And so being in my brother's house with no money, no nothing, I was just trying to cut a deal with God to get out of my brother's house. That's pretty much how I did it. Like, if I published the first book, you'd be like, all right, God, can I get out now? I was like, no, all right. So let's do 2 in 2 weeks. So I published 2 books on the same day, wrote those books in 2 weeks. I'm like this, can I go now? No. Okay. So then it was like the next book. So really that was just me cutting a deal of now restoring me financially back to the place that I was before I lost everything.
Wow. And so this was during the time that you were, because you mentioned staying with your brother, that was during the time that you were in South Carolina, right?
Yeah, I had time. I had time, girl.
You had time on your hands. Yes. No, but regardless, even having like all of the time, right, that we are gifted, in a day, still writing 5 books in 8 months is just like, I mean, you're right. That is a darn impressive stat. See, again, you own these things. I'm listening. Okay. So you said something that I want to kind of unpack. You said that you were terrified of your power, and that resonated with me. Do you perceive that is kind of the same as, someone saying, I'm scared of success? Because when I used to hear someone being scared of success, I used to be like, well, what we live for? We want to be successful and significant. We want to make a difference and have an impact. So talk to me about, go a little bit deeper into you being terrified of your power.
am a pattern breaker and generational change maker for my family, point blank, period. I'm an alpha woman and I'm a little crazy, right? You got to be crazy to be that person. And I'm the weirdo of my family and I'm the black sheep of my family. And I've always been like this loner because I am powerful because I came here to do great things in the world. The problem is when people don't understand it. And then they make me uncomfortable with just being who I am. I'm existing in full power. I am a powerful woman. And so over time, being the weirdo and wanting to be accepted, and then going to college and then joining a career, over time, I started to distort my energy to make people comfortable with me. And you can't do it. It's like a light bulb. It's not gonna work. And so we start to lose clarity on who we are when we have to fight people just to exist in who we are. People are judging who I am because I'm making them uncomfortable. People want me to turn down my light to make them uncomfortable. And so over time, that turns that fear, I would say, and the distortion turns into pain, which turns into hell.
Yeah.
Right.
Name it.
So
Yeah.
now it's like I'm lighting people on fire. And Aaliyah had this movie, like it was a vampire movie back in the day, where she would just walk by people and do her hand like this and they would catch on fire. So now it's like I'm inflicting pain on you because you're creating pain for me to distort my vision. And so it was a lot. And it's exhausting because we're existing and we're in a bubble and we're uncommon in our families. We're uncommon in the workplace. And so it's very lonely. And so walking around and doing that, I didn't know that there were other women in, maybe one in their organization or 1-2 miles away, a nurse down the street that's catching it, a woman that's a doctor down the street and a lawyer that's being ostracized in an organization. And so I became terrified because I started to use my power in the darkness. Right. And I started to cuss men out. You say something to me, I will cuss you out, talk about your mom and call you 45 different BITCHs in 2 minutes. I was a military officer, so I didn't really play that. And so now what God gave me for good is now used to inflict pain on other people who created pain for me first. And here's the thing, Dr. Nika. Dr. Nika. They started it, okay? Like they would say something petty, men always got something to say in a room. They started it and I would finish it. But then when I finished it and I burned down the whole room and now I've created a victim, nobody ever remembers who started it. And so anyway, so after burning out is like, all right, how do I now balance, the fear of if I own my full power, how is the world going to handle that? And it took a little bit of time of me talking and sharing and writing the books and doing the videos. And then one day somebody pissed me off and I did a video and I launched it on LinkedIn. And that was like the most viewed, the most comment. I'm like, oh, okay, y'all like that? Because that's actually how I talk. That was like not just being comfortable with myself, because I'm very comfortable who I am, but now sharing that on a larger platform and not worrying about how other people feel about it.
Yeah. So that level of authenticity is something that I think many people spend a lifetime trying to be able to emulate and to model. And so the fact that you do it so freely is a gift. And I just wanted to acknowledge that. So thank you. Thank you for showing up as your authentic self today with this community and this audience. So I want to talk about some of this great goodness that you are able to impart and pour into all of the people that you touch through your coaching, through your mentorship. And let's first talk about some of the more common challenges that women face in the workplace. And what are some of those coaching tips that you provide to help women to navigate those challenges?
I would say the biggest challenge are women are misplaced, right? Like if I'm in an organization where people are always asking me, who do you think you are? I should not be there. It's like if I'm in an organization where I want to do certain things and people keep saying at your station, at your position, we're not going to allow you to do this. It wasn't that I wasn't capable. It's just that they weren't going to allow me because I wasn't in the position that allowed that.
Right.
And, the military is kind of hierarchical.
Right.
And so they give it to somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, who's not as qualified, a man, because it wasn't that many of us in the organization. And then they jam it up. Right. So that's the frustrating part of it. And had I known, or had I had the courage, but again, I'm seeking security. I was a military officer. I was supposed to do 20 years and I was supposed to be gone. And I resigned with 3.5 years left to retire with a full pension. But had I had the courage to just leave or to go seek who wanted my intellectual property, highly valuable intellectual property, who would have treated me fairly, I wouldn't have stayed there. And I had people who offered me jobs all the time. Like these women are offered jobs all the time, but we become stuck on safe. Other people saw my power. They saw my strength. They loved it. They was like, look, Christy, are you? And I was like, I'm loyal. I'm loyal to dysfunction. I'm loyal to being disrespected. I'm loyal to my persecutors, all for a sense of what they owe me. But I was going to die trying to get it. I wouldn't have made it to the 20-year retirement. I would have died before that. And a lot of women are. So I would say that's the biggest thing, is that women are playing safe and they're playing small. And then they're getting harassed, and it's because they're out of position.
Yeah. So I'm with Alina. We both kind of went to the chat pretty, right back to back. And don't be stuck on safe. That was really powerful. Don't be stuck on safe. And so outside of not being stuck on safe, what else do you share with women to help them boost their confidence and their assertiveness in professional settings? Because that's a challenge for a lot of women.
Well, it's typically in a professional setting, if you're out of place, and it's the same thing that I talked about earlier, is distorting your energy to make other people comfortable with you. At a certain level, Dr. Nika, is like, we're so uncomfortable with who we are, we offset the energy in the room. So our uncomfortability with ourselves is making other people uncomfortable. So a part of getting the salary raises and getting the new jobs and having interviewers run my clients down and be like, hey, we're going to skip all of this. We're just going to offer you this job, is because people want senior women on their team. People want women on their team. They don't want an unstable, crazy woman on their team. And so it's like, they made us this way, and then they persecute us and judge us for what the environment created, but it's not their responsibility to fix what was broken. It's our responsibility to own our power and to understand that we are so uncomfortable with ourselves, and we're so powerful when we walk in the room, we're making other people uncomfortable. And if we understood what our true power was, and if we understood our intellectual property and our value in the market, we won't put up with being disrespected. People do what we allow them to do. So it's a vicious cycle that we get caught in. I mean, it could be like 20 different Legos of how we create these toxic work environments, but it starts with us trying to diminish our power to make other people uncomfortable, and then get mad when they treat us like we're small, and then being out of position and stuck in organizations where we're not being paid our value, while becoming complacent and complaining about something that we have all the power to change if we just had the courage to do it.
That is really powerful. So we have to get in the right position. We have to don't become stuck on safe. And I also want to challenge something too, because I'm interested in understanding, Christy, your perception of where does the shared accountability, though, come in? Because I hear you say what we need to do as women. I truly believe in all of that. We have to make sure that we're accepting the self-agency to do what we can, control what we can, right? And we can't control a lot of things that are outside of our control, obviously. But what's the shared accountability and responsibility on these organizations who are creating cultures and environments that, again, that are making it hard for women to have a level of confidence and to be able to stand, upright in a position that really embodies all that they have to offer in that professional space?
There are people who fight at the organization level, and then I go beat the women in the head, right? Like, that's not my battle, and
Got it.
if I try to do it all,
Yeah,
I
hear
go
you.
get the teenagers and the kids. And so, I do believe that organizations are responsible, however. So I was in my organization for years, and then I ended up working on Capitol Hill for the late, great Elijah Cummings on the oversight committee and investigative committee of my organization. So it's like you're going at the top of your organization, and you're pulling the curtain back, and you're looking at the cluster of like what's happening. And so I'm doing all these things. I'm sitting on the DEI committee. I'm mentoring 90 Black officers outside of my organization of the 160 people who work for me. I'm training like the young men, and I talked about earlier, like 2 of my guys are in that office, but 4 of the people from that office, and we call it MSU Port Arthur. It was a small office. 4 are in that elite office because I trained those junior officers. And so it overflowed into other guys that weren't directly connected to me. Does that make sense? So 4 in the elite office alone. And so when I think about what organizations are responsible for, so I'm doing all these things, I'm working 80 hours a week, I'm burning through my childbearing years, I'm single, I'm rubbing my own leg at night singing tweet, right? Like I have all these things that I'm doing, Dr. Nika, to be able to empower people and change the organization. But when I pull that curtain back and I worked on the investigative and oversight committee, I saw that no matter what I did individually, there was a machine that was working 24 hours a day that was pumped in by 50 different people to keep it like it was. So what my goal is to teach women is to, and that actually started the unraveling of my mental health, because I'm like, I have this whole regret thing of, oh my God, I can't believe I spent my whole life doing these things. And I have a machine that's working 24 hours a day that's pumped in by other people to unravel what I've done. And then it's like, am I going to spend my time controlling what I can control? Or am I going to go try to fight this machine that's working against me? I just choose freedom. And it took me almost dying to get to this point. It took me almost dying and working myself to death to own how great I am, let's be clear, and then to own my power and be unapologetic about it. And so the stuff that I teach is that I had to learn the hard way. And my goal is to prevent women from doing the exact same thing. So I'm not going to say that organizations aren't accountable, because they are, but it's like, how long are we going to wait for organizations to do something, as opposed to understanding that there are organizations that want us on their team. There are people who want us on their team. There are people who, I mean, when I say they fling the door open for women who are confident and secure and harmonious with themselves first, oh, they want it all the time. And so it's creating a new conversation in the market that we don't have to put up with that mess. We could just shake the dust from our feet and carry on. It's in the Bible.
This is so powerful. So I'm, by the way, when I show up to these conversations, even though I'm hosting, I am in the learner seat as well. And so I'm just soaking it all up the way that hopefully this audience is. And so, yeah, there was so many different clarity break moments in what you just shared. And I want to just kind of socialize around what's coming up for me. The first is the use of the word machine was very intentional for you. And I love that. Someone placed into the chat, choosing freedom from the machine is powerful. It really is power. And I love that language, because you're right. So much of what happens that we feel like we have no control over, those are well-oiled machines that have been well-oiled for decades and decades and decades. So sometimes it can feel really defeating to have a perception that we're going to now be able to tackle that. It's important. Don't get me wrong, I'm like you. I think that we need people that are focused on those machines. But I love the fact that you're so clear in your focus and your purpose, which is, I want to work on the women. That is what my ministry is. That is where my focus is. And that's where I want to spend my time and my energy. And I think there's something to be said for that. The other clarity break was when you were talking earlier, and these are my words, not yours, but what I kept hearing when you were saying, we need to stop allowing things, right? Is what you tolerate will continue. And I don't think that we lean into that enough, because we tolerate a lot of stuff as women in the workplace. And no wonder these machines are so powerful and well-oiled, because we aren't speaking up enough to change that. And anyway, I think that is really resonating with me, and I hope it is with this audience too. And folks are letting us know, Christy, that it is resonating through their comments into the chat. So I want to talk about your educational experience, because it is incredibly admirable. It is impressive. You know, of course, you are a Harvard Business School alumni. You've also had training from Georgetown University in terms of your executive leadership coaching. And so I want you to share with this community, how have these educational experiences shaped your approach to coaching and leadership development, and even the way that you show up in spaces today?
Well, you know, I'm always talking about, stop getting all these degrees. and this is what I learned about a lot of women. Women don't have a plan for their degree. All of my stuff was planned. So as I'm
Me too.
anti-education and getting a gazillion things, there has to be a plan. And so when I got my MBA, it's because 98% of the leaders, senior leaders in my organization had an MBA. So I had to check that box, check. Wow. Then I went to a conference and this lady started talking about coaching. And I was like, oh my God, that's what I do. That's what they call it. Wait, and people get paid for this? Like, because in the military, we call it mentorship and it's free. And I'm like, this is exactly what I do. So that's why I ended up going to Georgetown. And so culinary school was just like a lifelong dream of, I always wanted to be a pastry chef. The first book I read was the Betty Crocker cookbook. And so I ended up going to culinary school. And so then it was like, okay, I'm not doing anything else. And so once I burned out and fell apart, it's Harvard for me was this gift because one of my friends called me, and I'll deny it all the time, but he called me for like a year and a half. He's like, Christy, you need to go to Harvard. And the GI Bill will pay for it. And I wasn't doing anything. And I'm just like lingering. And so I had this vision of the organization that I have today, but I couldn't close the gap because I didn't know the language. I was a military officer. I didn't know how to speak corporate. And so I kept running into these hurdles of I didn't speak the language at all. And so I ended up calling the program director of this program at Harvard Business School. We ended up getting on the phone. I'm still in my brother's house, Dr. Nika. I had nothing, right? But I had a past. I thought I didn't have anything. And that's why I always tell women, you have everything. We just can't remember. Does that make sense? Like I'm drinking and watching Lord of the Rings because Frodo was on a journey. So I had this past of being great and it's still being demonstrated today. Hallelujah, let's be clear. And then I had this vision of what I wanted to create. And so I talked to this woman and I'm like, I'm in the middle. So, can you bet some chips on me? And we ended up talking and she was like, I like you. I said, I like you too. She was like, you know what, just submit your application. I'm gonna walk it through. But one of the things that I said to her that I don't know if it turned the top because we ended up talking for like 20, 30 minutes. It was supposed to be like a 5-minute conversation. I had somebody that was known already that introduced me. So relationships are important. Yep. And then her dad was in the military. So she understood because nobody really understands, professionally we get attached to these titles, but if people don't understand how that translates and we can't communicate that, it's over. So I teach that as well. But I told her, I said, you know what? A lot of people count me out. I said, because I'm Black, I'm a woman, and I'm a veteran. Most people say that's 3 strikes, but I'm going to tell you the 4th thing that people aren't considering. I'm a champion. I said, so it don't even matter. That's like the lesser of the minorities that people say that you're going to count me out because I got 3 strikes as a minority. I said, but the 4th one is always going to make sure I win. She was like, oh, I like you. I like you too, girl. So that's how I got in. And so it's almost like a full circle moment because she's always, in my inbox and we talk all the time. It's like she can now see what I saw. And she was like, Christy, you know what? When I took a chance on you, it's either this is going to be a great idea or it's going to be a terrible idea. And now she sees that. And actually her sister came through our program and is on the whole glow up. And so that was earlier this year. So that's a full circle moment for me for sure.
I love that. And we do have to be champions of ourselves and take the self-advocacy approach in a way that's very intentional. I do believe that. And what you're communicating to us is that when we do that, it separates us, right, from the pack. It gives us that edge. And so even more reason that we shouldn't shy away from, again, owning all of what makes us valuable into any space. And so we have to name that. So I'm going to shift in a little bit and we will invite our audience to share any questions or comments that you may have for our guest co-host today, Christy Rutherford. And if you're part of our Zoom community, you can do so by using the raise hand feature. And that lets me know that you're willing for me to invite you to unmute yourself and we'll add you to the spotlight. But you also may just want to communicate your questions into the chat, and that's fine as well. We will make sure we present those questions with the time that we have. And if you're joining LinkedIn Live, then you can go to the comments to share your questions. And my team is bringing that over into this chat so that we can make sure your voice is heard as well. So while you're percolating on maybe your questions or curiosities, I'm going to go to the next question for Christy, and then I will look for any raised hands or questions into the chat. So it's a similar question, Christy, to the other one about your educational experiences and how that has shaped the way that you show up. The question relates, though, to your experiences that are pretty vast around, other type of opportunities. Like I read in your bio, responding to the needs of citizens and after Hurricane Katrina, your work in the House of Representatives. And so can you share a little bit about how those experiences that are unique in of themselves have influenced your leadership style and your coaching approach?
It's interesting about my career. It was vast. It was amazing. I love my job. Like I love what I did. I love the people who work for me. I just didn't like fighting every day. And I thought that if I got everything you said I couldn't have, and I checked all the boxes, that I would get my gold star. And the fights just became pettier.
Yeah.
Right? The executive leadership table was Nightmare on Elm Street started every morning at 8:00. So like the things that we fought for and that I wanted when I got there, every serial killer was sitting at the table with me. Jason, Freddy Krueger, the Chucky doll was sitting across from the table.
That's funny. I've
The
heard the I've heard the analogy of like the Sunday scaries. And so that's what this is reminding me of.
Everybody, it's a whole nightmare. And then you get in the room and you're like, what have I done? But had I arrived in the room whole, right? Had I arrived in the room with owning my power, had I arrived in the room knowing exactly who I was, I don't think that it would have been as bad. It would have been, Sesame Street compared to being Nightmare on Elm Street, because the internal battles that I had was Nightmare on Elm Street. So going back to Katrina, my expertise, I'm an emergency manager. So we're first responders. When something pops off, boom, we got to show up, right? So it's highly stressful. But what's interesting about Katrina is we got to this base, and I'm the senior person actually on the base, the only Black woman, I think the only Black officer, which was common. And I created a whole system and a structure around keeping us safe, because we had, I think it was about 300 people it was about 100 people there from like 16 different places initially. And then some other team came with like 100 people, and everybody's going out. Nobody's keeping track. We don't do that, Dr. Nika. Does that make sense? But because Katrina was new and responding to hurricanes was new, nobody was keeping track of like, who was there. And if somebody goes out, we don't know who's there. So we don't know where they went, right? That's not how we operated as an organization. So I worked 20-hour days to set up the structure. I drew out the whole map and the chart, and the men told me to kiss their ASS, and they cussed me out of my face, and they said, no, we're not going to help you. And if you want to do it, you do it yourself. But after I implemented it and almost worked myself to death, which was common, 5-6 days later, they were like, we're so glad you did that. And then was, the bittersweet part, however you want to call it, when I left, they had 4 men came to do my job, because I did that for 14 days, 20-hour days, and they came to pick me up. I was delirious. They said I was in the truck, like talking to myself in the background. Like I almost worked myself to death. But then when it came time for the awards, Dr. Nika, they didn't remember my name. I got the exact same award as the men who did nothing. And so, what that taught me was sometimes, when you show up, one, God is always keeping score. So let's be clear. But it's like, I wouldn't change it, but I don't think I needed to work that hard. Right? Like, did we need all of that? I think we did. Actually, I wouldn't change it. I would do it all over again, because it's like, if I had this idea and somebody would have gotten hurt or had been missing, and I didn't create what I needed to create in the moment, I would have some guilt around that. But that's what I learned there, is like, you're going to win some and you're going to lose some, but I just took that one in my heart as a win. Capitol Hill was amazing, because I had a break from the Coast Guard and all the egos and the chest bumping and because I'm in an organization, they bump each other's chests and they have ego. I didn't work for them. So I'm like a fake civilian is what I call it, because I wore a suit every day and I walked around, and they worked 9 to 5. And I was like, well, can I work from 7 to 6? And the guy was like, no, we work from 9 to 5. Like, me actually not being high strung and working 80 hours a week, I had to work from like 9 to 5, and that was it. And I took 2-hour lunches, and I went over here and had lunch. And so I never really had a life before. And so it forced me to slow down long enough and be like, what makes me happy? Because these people ain't working, from 6 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. Like they're not doing all of that, and they weren't for that. And so then I started watching Oprah, and watching Wayne Dyer and Gary Zukav. And then I was in color, I went to actually Georgetown, and my classmates talked about authenticity. I was so embarrassed. I didn't know what it meant. And they talked about authenticity for like 2 weeks, and I read books about it. I was too embarrassed to ask them, what does being authentic mean? Until in the program, when I remembered who I was, like I remembered my 7th grade self before I started to adopt my perspective of, oh, we don't have no money because you got people, teenagers driving Lexuses, and I got to drive a 18 van. Does that make sense? When you start to compare yourself to other people, and then before you conform into the organization, and before you go to college and all these other kind of things, I'm like, oh, back when we were pure in who we were before we started the comparison, before you had to diminish your shine to make other people comfortable with you. And to me, that's what authenticity is like the younger version of who we are. And then I had to grow that person up. So of course, this person that I was could not exist in an organization that didn't support who I wanted to be. It didn't support the butterflies and the rainbows and the unicorn riding. I had to be like a warrior. So that was a part of the conflict as well, which is why I left.
So you embody authenticity. And I love that you have shared with this community that I mean, basically you studied it. You immerse yourself in what does this look like? What does this look like in practice? What does this look like from just a psychological, convictional belief perspective? And how can I follow in that realm? And I will say that I think that it has served you well, because when I think about your following and I think about people that gravitate to you, I would imagine that it is because you aren't putting on a facade. You show up consistently as Christy Rutherford, take me or leave me. I know my power. I know my value. And again, I just think that's so admirable. I'm watching the chat, and Tracy shares this. It resonated with her when you mentioned you can love your job and it not love you. That is so true. Yeah, that is absolutely so true. So I haven't said this before in this conversation. I want to take a moment to do it now. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service to our country. Yes, thank you. Absolutely. Thank you for your service to the citizens of New Orleans when Hurricane Katrina came and just devastated lives. I think that's important to share. And I do see a hand raised. And so I am going to call on Kay Scott. And Kay, feel free to unmute yourself and share at this time.
Christy, it's 2023.
Hey, Kay.
Katrina. Can you all hear me?
Yeah,
we can.
Okay. It's 2023 and Katrina still hurts. And life is not the same. But I want to say thank you. I don't want to keep you all because it hurts, but thank you. What she said. And if anyone never believed her, this is how you know she's telling the truth. It was 5 days before our organization came. And we never know. All I know from Katrina is Michael Brown and FEMA, and they didn't give a damn about us. And I know it's different races on this, but I want to say this, and I'm sorry it's being recorded. We were poor niggas in a city that they didn't give a damn about. And I'm very thankful that God used you. Thank you. So don't ever think you were overlooked. Thank you.
You're welcome. We were there. We were there working, looking, searching. So thank you so much, Kay. Like a lot of people say, that nobody showed up, which is triggering for me because I was there.
Oh, yeah.
We were there. I mean, so thanks for that, Kay. Thank you. Yeah, it wasn't about the award for me. It was like, can I get past that and just tuck that in my heart and knowing that, we saved 27,000 people that would have died had we not shown up. So.
Yeah. Kay, that was powerful. Thank you for your vulnerability. And I appreciate also you naming that it's been several years and it's still very painful. And I don't want this community at least to forget that. So thank you for reminding us of that. I think that's really important. How does that feel, Christy, when you hear stuff like that?
It's Katrina, I think it was devastating for everybody, right? Like some of that I try to block out myself, and then it's also very rewarding because we were there. Like I've done great work in my life, and so it's for me, it's remembering some of the things that I've done, and some of the even when I talked about the guys that work for me, and I've had a few women, right, that work for me, but a lot of the men is like, if I'm out of here tomorrow, I've done great work in the world. I've made my impact. Now I'm not done because I still got a lot of women I want to beat in the head. But if my time is up, I can look back on the things that I've done and count it all joy. And that's what I want a lot of women to do is like, we've done great work. We've served people. We served our families. And we don't ever stop and smell the roses that we planted. We don't stop and look at the flowers and the things that we've done. And we don't expect good to happen for us because we think that we need to do one more thing to be able to receive what we want. It's just like, no, stop, smell the roses and look at what you've done, count it all joy, and then live from that place. So definitely, thank you so much.
That's important. We do spend a lot of time. What other box can I check? And sometimes little makeup boxes that really are so irrelevant just to be able to check it. And I think that's also hindering us from really fully living in our power. So I'm with you, Ebony, who shared in the chat, when a woman comes into her power, it can save lives. Literally, we've heard about that in this conversation. I want to remind each of you, especially for those that may have joined after I read Christy Rutherford's bio. But so Christy is the 13th African-American woman to achieve the rank of commander in the U.S. Coast Guard's 230 plus year history, where her demographic was 0.1%. It was worth repeating. And I want to lean into that a little bit more with this next question, Christy. So as the 13th African-American woman to achieve the rank of commander in the U.S. Coast Guard history, you've obviously broken barriers. So what advice do you have for women, Christy, who aspire to break through similar barriers in their careers and professions? I mean, you've shared so much with us so far, but what else have you not really socialized around that you feel like is really important to place into the hearing of this community?
It's great on the bio. It sounds real good. I'm real shiny. However, I always have a but, right? Because it's always, don't be like me. It's when we want to shatter these glass ceilings. And when people always say, this is the first Black woman to do this, and this is the first African-American woman to do this, and this is the first, I have to pray for that woman. So I be like, pray for her. I'm not clapping like everybody else. I'm like, pray for her because, a lot of times when we break these glass ceilings, a lot of us succumb to the shards of the glass in the breaking.
That's so true.
We're not arriving whole. We're not arriving sane. We're not arriving with all of our mental and our physical health. So if we can stop long enough to take care of ourselves, they will open the door for us, Dr. Nika. We don't have to die in the fight. We don't have to die in the battle. We don't have to die and succumb to the wounds that was caused during the glass of the breaking. And so
right.
when you find yourself beating on a concrete wall, because that's what I felt like in my career, is like, I'm going mad, like it's madness and actually clinically insane. I was diagnosed. I had to get past that, right? Like that's not true. It was true, but it's not true. But I almost went, I would say I went clinically insane, beating my head on a concrete wall. That should have taught me I don't belong there.
Yes.
Why am I fighting? I didn't even want that. So let's be clear. I didn't necessarily want to be a senior military officer. I did it because they say I couldn't. It's like, so we get locked into doing things that we don't want to do to prove people wrong. And so I'm so far down in my organization that why would I leave that? Like, I'm going to get this money in the next 3.5 years. It's like, are you doing what you want to do, or are you doing what people told you that you couldn't do? And so now you are a senior leader in an organization. You're miserable, you're drunk, you're fat. All right. And it's because you don't want to be there. You got to eat food and drink wine to soothe the pain of your soul, because you know you're out of alignment with your assignment. You know your soul is longing to be free. Like, I want to be who I am. And so creating this in my organization, the best part of I would say my work in the organization and what's still paying dividends today was the coaching and the mentorship. But I'm doing all these other things. And so we're giving away our intellectual property to our organization. And we're creating these pet projects, which is actually should be our businesses. And I know I went long in that and I gave you like 5 different things, but it all matters, right?
Yeah, no, it definitely all matters. We're glad that you gave us all the things. And again, it's just as every time that you share with us, I always walk away with additional thoughts that really resonate with me. I think we need to unpack. We probably don't have the time today, but I really wish we could unpack just why we feel like we need to be in spaces that don't want us, right? There's something to be said for that. And I don't know, Christy, if in, all of your years of experience, you have been able to unpack that yourself. Why is it that we want to be in spaces that don't want us? It sounds easy to just, go somewhere else, but what's your thoughts on that?
Well, we're accustomed to being rejected. We're accustomed to not fitting in. We're the ones who came forth to break generational patterns for our family. We've existed in pain for a long time. The job is just a continuation of that. We've existed in pain by being the weirdos in our families. We've existed in pain by being the powerful person in our family. We've had people talk to us sideways long before we got to work. Work is just a continuation of that. We've been told that we won't amount to much. We've been told what we couldn't do long before we got to the job. The only thing the job did was just the next, that was just part 3 of the story that we've had. So now it's like, why are we loyal to dysfunction and why are we holding on to security and we're hoping that this job is going to make us feel safe and we're in hell every day, right? Looking for them to give us psychological safety while we're trying to chase security for the money. That's not going to work. And so I think if we slow down long enough, which is what we can't do because we're addicted to working and proving people wrong. And we've created this, these jobs where we're working endlessly. We don't slow down long enough to actually ask ourselves and reflect on what do I really want in life?
Yeah.
Like, what do I want? And there are so many narratives that are going around, Dr. Nika, is like, nobody's asking a woman to stop long enough. And actually to get my clients to stop, we have to have a whole 45-minute conversation of what does it mean to do nothing, right? It was like, do nothing. They're like, what do you mean? Right? We have to break that down. That's a course on how to do nothing for high achieving women. Is like, so we'll die with our dreams unfulfilled, or we haven't even dreamed. We stopped dreaming and we just started proving people wrong. And so we exist in these organizations because we're already accustomed to being in pain. The pain is just a continuation of that. And what's interesting, I was telling my coaches last week, after 2020, and I said it in 2020, I was like, there are women who are going to use this pain to be able to adjust and go create a new story. And then there are women who want to go back to better days and they're sticking their head in the sand. And we're going to see who those women are a couple of years later. I'm seeing these women now who chose to do nothing. They're different. I mean, I just tried to clean it up, but they different, Dr. Nika. I'd be like, my God. So now they're stuck in, it's almost like number 6 oil. And we went from quicksand to number 6 is like that dark, sticky oil that you got to sludge, you got to pull them out of. It's like and existing in that. And then you have all of these conversations around, mental health and high function anxiety and high function depression. And now it's the labeling of these things to give women permission to stay where they are and not move. And when I got this a couple of weeks ago, God was like, you got to help them. I said, I ain't signed up for that. I had to take a nap for 3 days. I was like, I can't pull these women out the mud. It's like, now I'm fighting what people believe to be medical conditions. People think that imposter syndrome is a medical condition, which is insane, right? And so we're buying into all of these narratives as opposed to understanding that we have to save ourselves and nobody is responsible for coming to get you. Your job is not responsible for your mental health. Your manager is just as crazy as you are. They are not responsible for your psychological safety. It's like you have to ensure your own so you don't die waiting for somebody else to provide that for you. Like those 2 Black women college presidents died two weeks ago.
Yes.
Right? They were waiting for somebody to do something too, or not. We don't know their story, so we can't keep creating this narrative of what we should be doing. Or this is my favorite one, and I'm gonna stop talking because I'm on a roll. But it's like women always be like, in case somebody needs to hear this. No, you need to hear it. somebody else needs to hear this. No, you need to hear it, and you need to eat this food and get to it, as opposed to like passing it out. So we're consuming information to give to other people while laughing at, while we're, all mentally struggling and having nervous breakdowns. That's not funny. There are so many memes that are going around where women are like, oh, I'm typing my, best friend, she drinking wine, and I'm typing my best friend who's on the verge of a nervous breakdown, trying to stop him having a nervous breakdown while I'm on the verge of a nervous breakdown. And people are like, oh, girl, I feel seen. That's so funny. I'm like, that's not funny. So you're going to admit that you're crazy? You're not going to do anything about it? Only because I broke up and went crazy, Dr. Nika, and almost died, to now come back and say, girl, you better save yourself, because burnout is catastrophic. Burnout is catastrophic mentally and physically and financially. It took me 4 years to put my mind back right. It took me 7 years to recover financially. And that took a toll on my family. My family did not deserve. Now, my cousins who thought it was funny because I burned out, don't even get me started on that. But my brother did not deserve to have a psychopath on his couch. He didn't deserve that. Had I taken care of myself, my family had to take care of me the first, right? The first person in my family to graduate from college. That me learning these lessons came at a great sacrifice. But we need to stop long enough to take care of ourselves and get clear on where we belong now with our 15, 20, 25 years of intellectual property, with our 15, years of experience. And don't put up with a bunch of mess from other people, but they're doing what we allow them to do. They're paying us less because we haven't asked. They're paying us half of what these managers are making because we don't have the courage to ask for it and shake the dust from our feet and carry on. So it's like there are organizations who want women. They want powerful women. They want us on their team. We have to get out of our own way and have the courage to step out and find out, as opposed to staying safe in the corner.
I wish I had a mic right now. The proverbial mic is being dropped right now. I want to remind this audience too, that one of the things that I shared as I was reading your bios, that your clients have received over 11 million in salary raises in the pandemic. And so if we're not receiving this information from someone that we believe to truly get it, then I don't know what's going to help us get it. I'm seeing your remarks in the chat. Many of you are saying, yes, we need Christy back. And I could not agree more. We are out of time, but I want to give you our final 15, 30 seconds to close us out, Christy, in whatever way that feels appropriate to you. What would you like to leave us with?
One, we're at 12.8 because that was my 2 month ago stat when Amora got it. But $12.8 million in raises since 2020. But what I want to was $100,000 that was got last week. But anyway, so what I want to leave the women with is, you gotta have the courage to just own how great you already are. Look in the mirror and just claim how great you already are. And don't be afraid about how other people feel about it. Don't be afraid who's going to judge you for loving yourself. Learning to love yourself is the greatest miracle. And that's the greatest gift that you can give yourself. And don't care about how other people feel about it. You were uniquely designed. You were uniquely created, perfect in his image, to be able to come forth and do great things for yourself first, for your family, and then for your community and for the world, if you choose. So I really just want to give women permission to just simply relax in your power. When you relax in your power, they will relax with your power. And the people who don't like it they'll just disappear and they will leave you alone. And so, I really just want y'all to, y'all got to save yourself. Nobody's coming for you, sis. Nobody's coming for you. Nobody's responsible for pulling you out of the mud. You got to save yourself. And really that's just a lot of work, and stop serving and start eating. Y'all got to stop serving and start eating. I think that was 5
We're so
minutes.
grateful. We're so grateful. We're so grateful. Thank you, Christy. Thank you so much. Thank you to this community that has shown up today and to be a part of this conversation and this community. We don't take that lightly. Wishing you all a safe and wonderful weekend. Last, don't forget, Indigenous People Day is October 9th. Thank you all for showing up today. Bye-bye.